I really love movies. I mean, movies inspired me to go into the field, the career that I have today, video and multimedia. And I also thought that because I have all of the equipment, I have like the latest gear. I've got the editing stuff here. I figured it'd be cool to put together a YouTube channel where I can review movies. I love talking about movies. I figured, that would be cool. And so whenever I review a movie, I have to pay to see it because I'm not a professional. I do this as an amateur. I do it for fun as a hobby. But I tell you what, man, I cannot continue to pay for hot garbage like Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. I knew it was probably not gonna be that good. How good could a movie about dinosaurs eating people, 5 movies deep, how good could it be? How could it not be a retread of everything we've seen? And it is that, only they managed to make it far worse. I thought Jurassic World was a mediocre film at best. This movie makes that movie look like the first Jurassic Park, which is still the best one. This movie is terrible in every way. It is a mess. It is a masterclass in what not to do when writing a screenplay. All logic goes out the window with this film. And I'm gonna tell you what, I'm sick and tired of seeing people do stupid stuff around dinosaurs. It's gotten old. Matter of fact, this movie knows how old it is, how old these tropes are, because most of the movie is so full of callbacks. There's callbacks to every film, every previous Jurassic Park film in this movie. And they're not that clever. So let me tell you why this is such a bad movie and why you should not waste your time. Hold on, give me a second. I gotta warm up before I get started. I'll warn you if I go anywhere near spoiler territory. Near the beginning of this movie, we are reintroduced to Jeff Goldblum's character, Ian Malcolm. He's in front of some, I guess, Senate committee hearing where he's once again saying the things that they've been saying since 1993 when the first movie came out. Why are we messing around with dinosaurs? We shouldn't be doing this. And he's meeting with this committee based on the framework of the first part of the film, where on the island, there's a volcanic explosion. If the government doesn't act to save the dinosaurs, they'll once again become extinct. And Ian Malcolm, I guess, is being the only voice of reason, says, let them die. And I'm like, okay, is there a problem with that? What have they done that we would want to keep them alive anyway? Every time people go near them, they die or they end up running. So anyway, basically the movie asks the same questions as the previous 4 films did. No one learns their lesson. And remember in Jurassic World when Claire Dearing, I think that was her character's name, Bryce Dallas Howard, has to drive out to meet Chris Pratt, and he's doing the manly outdoorsman thing, whatever he was doing, I forget, probably chopping wood or something. And she has to beg him to come help her with the dinosaurs. Well, we basically get that scene yet again here in this film, pretty much exactly the same, other than they increased the testosterone level, and now Chris Pratt is building a house. The manly man is building his own house. So in Jurassic World, he was a loner living on the land. And in this film, once again, he's a loner living on the land. Now, I'm not a screenwriter, call me crazy, but wouldn't it have been more interesting rather than placing that character or both of those characters back exactly where they were in the last film? Maybe since Chris Pratt helped save so many lives and was responsible for so many heroics, maybe the character, when we meet him in the beginning of this movie, maybe he's become an official. He's hired at a lot of money, making a lot of money for the government or some official bureau with the animals or with the island. And he's like a 9-to-5 suit and tie type of guy. Maybe not that drastic, but then his character has something where we can see a character change. We start off with him being different than what we saw already, and then throughout the film, part of his development arc is, does he like this life or is he lying to himself and he wants to go back and be the adventure guy, which is what we're going to get from him ultimately in the film. And then we can see some sort of character change or development or an acceptance of who he is. That would have been interesting, but no, they started off, wrote exactly where we were at the beginning of the first film. There's a character, I don't remember her name, but she was a young woman who was, get this, a paleo veterinarian, but she's never laid eyes on a dinosaur. Okay, so I don't know how she knows if she's a good one, but I thought she was far more interesting than Claire was. But then they had this character, the one person of color. He's like a throwback to the 1930s and 1940s, the Amos and Andy, step and fetch it type of person who, he's a young kid. I think his name is Franklin Webb. Spends the whole film screaming, scared out of his wits, unable to do anything other. Well, he's a hacker. He's a computer hacker, and he's just an annoying character. He's the bug-eyed, always afraid character that we used to see back in the minstrel days.
Deep breaths, Franklin.
We meet James Cromwell, who his character is named Lockwood, who we discover in this movie, 25 years later, that he was a partner with John Hammond. Of course, seemed like that would have come up previously, but clearly they just added this character so that they had somewhere to go with the plot. An actor that I'm not familiar with, Rafe Spall, I think his name is, who looks like the love child between Ryan Reynolds and Jason Sudeikis. He plays a character named Eli Mills. He is the assistant to Lockwood, John Hammond's partner. I don't want to give anything away about his character, but let's just say all the other characters in the film, other than the ones I've mentioned and Lockwood, they are the definition of comical evil stereotypes. These are the same characters that you saw in Jurassic Park Lost World, only they're ramped up to 1,000. All you're doing is proving that you've got no new ideas with this franchise. We've seen it all before. Then there's another character, her name is Maisie. I don't know if her last name was Lockwood or not, but she's the granddaughter of Lockwood, the older gentleman played by James Cromwell I mentioned before. And I'm not gonna give anything away, but I will say that there's a little bit of a surprise with her towards near the end of the film that literally made me want to get up after throwing my popcorn at the screen and leave the theater. It is so bad. It is just like, is this where you're going with the franchise? Are you really going there with this? I promise you, if you like Jurassic Park, if you are a fan of the franchise, you will absolutely hate what develops with this character. What's funny is that all the characters in this film, even Chris Pratt and Bryce Dallas Howard, who know about the dinosaurs, who work with the dinosaurs, every character in this film, whenever they hear boom, boom, boom. Now we in the audience know that means a dinosaur's coming to eat your ass. But every time, it doesn't matter if dinosaurs are running around or roaming free, every time a character hears that noise, we always get this. It's the tentative turn over your right shoulder or left shoulder and look up fearfully. It's this right here. Half of the cast does that in this movie, and I'm like, you know it's a dinosaur. Why are you slowly looking to see what's coming? It's a dinosaur. Another thing that makes this movie so terrible, the screenplay. This is a mild spoiler. It's not giving anything away critical, but it's a mild spoiler. Only the first 30 or 40 minutes of this film takes place on the island. After that, this movie devolves into the most bizarre, almost like haunted house of horrors type of film, it no longer becomes a Jurassic World or a Jurassic Park movie. The rest of the movie takes place in a mansion in Northern California. And I'm thinking to myself, what are you doing? No, who wants to see dinosaurs in that setting? We want to see dinosaurs in the wild. It's almost like the equivalent of when we saw the Planet of the Apes movies, where we had, I think it was the middle one, where Caesar was locked in a cage at some sort of sanctuary for a good part of the film. It's like, okay, I expect that to be maybe a part of a story with chimpanzees and interacting with humans. But dinosaurs? Dinosaurs in Northern California in a house. Maybe the writers thought, you know, we've seen the dinosaurs in the wild for so long and it's become stale. Let's find an environment, a new environment to put them in. Well, if this is what you come up with, you don't have any story. You don't have a movie. We've already seen the dinosaurs on the mainland. We saw that in Jurassic Park, Lost World, when the T-Rex got free in San Diego. And yes, we've seen dinosaurs in the wild, in the forest, in the jungles for all of the films. So maybe it's time to stop if this is what you're coming up with. And this last one for me, why this movie was so terrible, the dinosaurs. The last two acts of this film, as I mentioned, and I'm trying to be good, not give away too much. I don't think I've done too bad a job, but the last two acts of this film, to me, are a betrayal to what, let's say, I'll say the first three films were. What I mean by that is Jurassic Park, the franchise, is not a horror franchise. It's not meant to be a horror film. But it seems that with every new film in this franchise, the dinosaurs become less and less natural creatures or creatures of nature, you know, that hunt and eat, you know, like animals do. And they're becoming more and more like the xenomorphs from the Alien franchise, where they're evil by intent, where they consciously are seeking people to kill, not just for prey, but just to kill for fun, like any other slasher film. Now, I admit in the first Jurassic Park, which is still the best one, there were elements there where it was a little bit incredulous. I'm thinking of the Velociraptor scene towards the end of the first film, where, you know, they're able to open doors and they seem like they skulk around and they seem more human than animal, right? But for some reason, that film worked on a level where even though that was going on, I still never really lost sight that these are animals that are doing what animals naturally do, and that is they hunt prey and they eat it. All these other films, it just seems like these animals are being played like horror foils or horror antagonists, like Freddy Krueger's or Jason's, where it's not them being animals, it's them being like, okay, I'm gonna murder that guy. You know, you got dinosaurs in this film that when the humans are in jeopardy of being attacked by one dinosaur, another dinosaur will all of a sudden just save them by killing that dinosaur. And then the dinosaur that saved the day will look at the humans, and rather than see them as prey, they'll just walk away. And it's almost like I expect the humans to say, thanks for the save, I owe you one. It's like, they're not animals. They are plot devices. They have become, like I say, they've become like horror monsters. They've become monsters. These dinosaurs have become so, I don't know, maybe the word is commercialized, or become so humanized that they're almost less animals than they are serial killers. There are just so many implausibilities. Like, I don't know how dinosaurs' sense of smell works, but I just noticed that a lot of times when the scene required it, a dinosaur could sniff out its prey from yards away and go and grab its prey, human or otherwise. But then some scenes where, you know, humans would be right underneath the dinosaur's nose and the dinosaur has to look around and can't find them while the humans just skitter around the corner, and the dinosaur can't seem to locate them, can't smell them then. So many motivations and actions of the human beings are so stupid and make no sense. Why would you shoot a dinosaur that you think you're gonna make millions off of and then just throw him in a pen and let him bleed to death? I don't wanna give this plot point away, but if you remember one of the Austin Powers movies where Dr. Evil says he's gonna hold something for ransom, and he wants the grand total of $1 million. $1 million. And everybody's like, $1 million? Okay. Doesn't seem like a lot. Well, there's a scene in this film that will have you feeling the same way, like, really? That's the amount of money that we're talking about here after all the trouble? The ending is like really head scratching, like, that can't be how you're gonna end it, right? Unless they're blatantly telling us, well, you gotta wait for the next sequel, which is pretty much what it is. The ending is really ridiculous. And there's a plot point involving one character that it doesn't get resolved, and it makes you wonder, why was it introduced in the first place? It seems so out of nowhere. The whole last 2 acts of this film seem like some sort of really bad sci-fi film. It's not Jurassic World, it's not Jurassic Park. And I guess they're just setting up for a sequel. And I'm gonna tell you, the elements that are left dangling, if those elements are going to be the plot points that lead us into the next film, that next film is gonna be just complete, total garbage. And you know what else really surprised me about this movie? As I'm sitting there watching this rubbish on screen, the music is so intrusive. The music is the corniest, one of the worst scores I've heard possibly ever. Terrible music. And I sat there in the theater through the credits because I wanted to see, who did they hire to compose it? Michael Giacchino? What? The guy who I gave so much credit to in scoring the last Star Wars film, The Last Jedi, who actually brilliantly mimicked some of John Williams' cues. That was his score? Oh my God, it's awful, it's terrible. It's so like 50s sci-fi. It's I can't even put it into words. Bad characters that do stupid things, plot points that get no resolution, and you wonder why they were even brought up. Dinosaurs that behave less like animals and more like supervillains. Some of the bad guys in this movie were so over the top, I expected to see handlebar mustaches and them twirling them. A god-awful surprise twist with one of the characters that went nowhere, and a second and third act that play more like it belongs in the Alien franchise than the Jurassic Park franchise. Easily the worst film I've seen this year. Terrible, horrible. I gotta tell you, if you like this movie straight up, please leave a comment below and tell me, what is it that you liked about this movie? How is it possible you found anything redeemable about this film? As it is, I'm giving it a half reel out of 5. I walked out of this film kind of angry, and they had the gall to have a post-credit sequence, and I'm like, you guys are not Marvel Studios. It's not worth waiting for. Just know that you have been warned. And that's the martini.